It's Money Mondays. We are back. We're getting started in 3 minutes.
Took me down to where I've been lately. Yeah, her love can make a person hazy. Praying she won't break me down. She makes me crazy. Never promise anything, but maybe I let her do anything, let her play me. She makes me go another round. What are you doing to me now? You found a way to me somehow. Now you're all I ever dream about.
Like usual, let me know where you're watching from. City, state, YouTube, Facebook. Let us know where you're watching from. Tyler Dow, welcome to the party. Saginaw, Michigan in the building. Corey, welcome to the live stream. Q Mert, Orlando, Florida. Calvin Cobb, Atlanta. Gerard, welcome to the live stream. Tyler Dow, YouTube, Seattle. I always like to see who representing more, YouTube or Facebook. 40 seconds. How to get out of debt, how to get rich. That's what we're talking about today. Patricia, Texas. Look at Texas representing. Cheryl. My girl, Maria Dunbar. What's up, Maria? We went to high school together. Freshers in class, Washington State. Welcome to the party. 10-second countdown. Let's go. J. Lou, Alden, New York. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Money Monday. Unless you're watching this on the replay and it's like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but welcome to the live stream. I'm your host, stock market coach and option trader, Jason Brown. And just because I'm feeling it today, I want to bring the horns in. It's always fun bringing in the sound effects. But hey, listen, if you're brand new to the channel or to the private Facebook group, welcome to the community. We go live every week for about an hour, breaking down some type of topic around mindset, money, the market that you need to hear. So it would do us a big favor if you hit the thumbs up, like button, hit the subscribe, destroy it, smash it, let the YouTube algorithm know that this is a video that someone needs to see and hear. And if you're on Facebook, feel free to tag a friend so that they can tap in and get this good information. So in this series that we're on right now, we're in a series called Mindset. So we just came out of our 5-week series on options trading. So if you haven't watched that and you want to learn all about options trading, go check that out. But in this series, we're going to be talking all about mindset. All right. So this is day 2 or week 2 of mindset. And we're going to be talking about how to get out of debt and how to get on the fast track to getting rich. Okay. Whatever rich means to you. And that's going to be an important distinction as well. So let's switch over to the slides and let's talk about it. America Carver in the building. Welcome to the party. You got Janice McCormick from Columbus, Ohio. Kojo is in the house. Level Up Productions, The White, Greg Davis from West Palm Beach, Steve Austin from Maryland. You got Henry. Loving it, loving it, loving it, loving it. Good to see all you guys here. So let's talk about how to get out of debt and how to get onto the fast track. And what's cool about this topic, I'm passionate about it because I've been broke, I've been in debt. And I always said, like, if I ever figured this stuff out, I would share it with the world, as best as I could. I would just share what I went through, what was my mindset, how did I get through it, how did I get to the other side? Because when you're in debt, and you're not living the lifestyle that you want to live, it's kind of depression, right? It's pretty depressing when you're not, financially able to make it. And so I remember going through those moments of feeling depressed and like, what am I doing with my life? I'm better than this. Or questioning, like, are people really that much better than me? Like people that I felt like I was smarter than, sharper than, but I'm like, but they're in a better situation than me. And I'm like, why is that? And I realized it didn't really matter how smart you were. It didn't really matter, at least what you thought about the other person. What matters is the type of game that they were playing and the game that you were playing and the difference between the knowledge they had and the knowledge that you had. That's what I found was the biggest difference maker between me and other people, or me and my goals. So let's talk about how to get out of debt and get on the fast track, okay? And we're going to be giving you some action items. So if you're watching this at work or listen to it while you're driving, or you're just not in the position to take the action items, what I want you to do is when the video is over, I want you to go back through it and then take a look at the action items. And then I want you to follow through all the action steps. So let's get into it. Let's talk about number one. The first thing that you have to do is understand where you are. Okay. And that means where you are at in life. One of the biggest illusions that keep people from moving forward in life is that they don't understand where they currently are, or they fabricate where they currently are. So let me give you an example. When I had lost a lot of money, I owed a bunch in taxes, I had a bunch of credit card debt and all this stuff. Like, I had to get real with myself and say, Jason Brown, where are you at in life right now? And it's so easy because your ego will tell you things like, it's not that bad. I got this. It was just a little setback. And so your ego will actually keep you from telling yourself the truth. Does that make sense? Your ego will be in your ear saying, you good, you got this. It's not that bad. You can overcome it. And when I really got serious, or at least transparent or real, as they say, with myself, and I was like, man, let's just really talk about where you at right now. And at that moment in my life, when I just got real with myself, when I said, where am I truly at? I said, man, you deep in debt. When I looked at how much I was being charged in interest every single month versus what I made, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get out of this unless I do something drastic. So I was just real with myself. I wasn't like, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, you can just keep going like this and get over it. I was just like, man, it don't make sense. The amount of people you owe, the debt that's mounting up, that's racking up from credit cards, student loans, all this different stuff. I just had to be real with myself and say, like, this is my income. This is what I owe. This is how much in debt I am. And like, it's funny that once you do this, okay, here's the funny part about once you get real about where you're at. When you get real about where you're at, it's like a weight is lifted off your shoulders, because it starts the ideas of flowing of how to get out of that situation. But as long as you're not realistic about your current financial situation, it stops the ideas from coming in, because you're so busy fronting that you're not even open or looking for the solutions that'll get you out of the situation, because you've already downplayed the situation, right? You've downplayed the fact that you're $50,000 in debt So when a $100,000 opportunity comes your way, you almost don't even see it because you like, I don't even need $100,000 opportunity because I'm really only a few $1,000s in debt. But it's because you're lying to yourself. You're not really taking inventory of where you're at, and that's not just a money type of inventory. That's taking the inventory of where you're at from your knowledge standpoint. That's taking an inventory of where you're at as far as your work ethic standpoint, because there was a whole lot of things I had to evaluate. Where am I at? So it's not just where you're at with money. It's like, where am I at with my knowledge? Where am I at with my work ethic? It's kind of like going to the gym. It's like once you acknowledge where you're at, you're like, I eat too many donuts. Yep, I eat too many sweets. I eat too much bread. I drink too much pop. I don't work out, right? Don't sugarcoat it. Don't be like, well, I mean, I do hit the gym sometimes. Like, nah, I ain't been in the gym in 6 months, right? Been paying for the membership. Ain't been like when you just get raw and get real about where you're at, it's a freedom in that. Cause now you know where the checkmate is at. You know where the checkpoints is at. All right. So number one is understanding where you are. Okay. And that's going to be your first action step. And most people are going to fail right here because there's this old saying that it's easy to do, but it's easier not to do. So what am I trying to say? It's easy to just take out a piece of paper. It's easy to just take out a piece of paper, right? After this session and just write down, like, where am I at? And be real with yourself. It's easy to do, but guess what? It's easier not to do. Oh, I got it in my head. I'm going to keep it in my head. I know where I'm at. This is too simple. Get to the good stuff. This is why most people fail. Why? Because most people can't follow a simple game plan. They can't follow a simple game plan. So how do you ever expect to get to the sophisticated stuff? So do me a favor. Don't be like most people. Write down this action step. So take out a piece of paper when this is over, or if you're following along, just write down when this is over. Got to write down where am I currently at. Like, be truthful with yourself. Where are you at with your knowledge, your money, your work ethic? Those are at least 3 categories to start: knowledge, money, work ethic. Okay, where are you at with respect to those 3 things? Okay, write that down because it's going to build upon each other. Now, for most people, since we're talking about money, obviously we're going to be talking about how to get out of fast track and get out of debt and get on the fast track with money. Most people, where you're at is you're in debt. Okay, and so having debt in itself is not a bad thing. All right, so don't confuse this with, oh, I got a rental property and it's in debt, or don't confuse this with, I have maybe you got a car note or something like that, where the debt becomes a problem. Okay. And hear me good. Where the debt becomes a problem is when you don't have any money for opportunity. That's where it becomes a problem. So again, I'm going to talk about my situation, right? And then you insert your own story, your own scenario wherever you want to be. When I look back at my situation, when I looked at my debt story, okay, I had to say, like, first of all, what do I own, or why am I in debt? And when I really broke it down, I remember I was like, okay, I got this Lexus GS 300, okay, that I owe a note on it or whatever the case may be. Okay, I had like an apartment, I had some credit card debt, I had some student loan debt, etc. Right? And so when you look at why you're in debt, I want you to go a step further. Because it's easy to just say, oh, I'm in debt because I went shopping, because I bought a car, because I bought a house. Like, no, 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 no. I want you to take it a step further. So I'll talk about myself. It was like, yeah, no, I know what you bought, but why are you in debt? And when I really thought about it, I was like, I'm in debt because I felt like I was less than if I didn't drive some name brand car. Not only did I have to drive some name brand car, but I had to put 20-inch rims on it so that I can show people that I was really balling, right? And so now we starting to really do open heart surgery on why you are in debt. Not what did you buy, okay? We know you bought some stuff, But what is it about you that had to have a car that was more expensive than you can afford at the expense of not being able to put as much money as you would like to into the stock market? That was the question I had to ask myself. I had to have a deep conversation. What was it about having to have the clothes, the $300 Coogee sweater, $400 Gucci shoes or something like that? I think I have Ferragamos, whatever. They're the same. But what is it about those things that you had to have it so bad that you were willing to mortgage your future? Because that's what most people are doing. Most people are mortgaging their future. You are borrowing from money that you haven't even made yet, from work that you haven't even done yet, just so that you can do what? Today. For me at that time, it was just so I could feel good about myself driving a new car, so I could show people that I was the man. Because not only did I get a Lexus, but I put it on 20s. You don't do that unless you're really making money, right? And you have to step out with a nice set of clothes on, right? And so when I really got serious about why I was in debt, there were some insecurities there that had nothing to do with uh, physically the car. It was like, how do I really see myself? That I felt like I need these things, that I need them so bad that I'm willing to mortgage my future. I'm willing to mortgage tomorrow for some stuff today that's going to depreciate and not even going to mean anything 6 months from now. I remember when I really started looking at how I think about new cars. I remember like thinking like, okay, I bought this new car. Like, I'm the man right now. It's 2003. I said, but next year I will have last year's car. So the guy who buys my car in 2004 and I bought it in 2003, next year we both got last year's car. Like that blew my mind. Unless you go keep up with the Joneses, try to trade the car in or buy a new car every single year, I realized like, wow, next year we both got last year's car. But he probably got it for $10,000 cheaper. You know what I'm saying? Because we both driving a 1-year-old car with a couple miles on it. So it's like, man, it really opened up my mind. So you got to really ask yourself, why are you in debt? And when I say why are you in debt, not necessarily what did you buy, but what was it about those things that you had to have it so bad that you were willing to borrow against your future? You were willing to mortgage your future, so much so that you don't have any money for opportunity. Because you can see later on in life, what became more important to me was having opportunity money versus having money to buy things to make other people believe that, I was somebody that I wouldn't say that I wasn't. I was that person, but it's like I had my faith, my energy into those things. So action step, I want you to write down not just what you bought, but like, why are you truly in debt? Like, why'd you buy the house that you couldn't afford? Why'd you buy the clothes that you shouldn't have bought? Why did you go out and buy a round of drinks for everybody when you're like, oh, how we gonna pay for this, right? Or at the expense, maybe you know how you go pay for it. You're like, I'm good, I make money, I'm decent. But then when it comes to investing, you're like, well, I don't have no money to invest. So what made you make a decision today to at the expense of not being able to put money to work tomorrow or in the future? Does that make sense? If that makes sense, do me a favor, hit the emojis, thumbs up, like it, rain down, all the things so that I can know that you're with me and this is making sense. All right. So that's going to be your action step, is to take inventory of the things you've bought, but more importantly, why? Why? And that's going to take you being real and honest with yourself, which is a tough thing to do. I'm telling you, man, when I looked at some of the reasons and motivations behind why I did some of the things, I was like, ooh, I don't really like that person. Right. I'll tell you one of my favorite lines from Drake that I sing now. And he says, in one of Drake's rap lines, he says, ooh, I really like who I'm becoming. And like now I'm like in love with who I'm becoming. Like when I look in the mirror and I think about who I'm becoming, it's like I can rock a t-shirt and feel comfortable. Like we went to the cider mill this weekend, took my daughter with us. I mean, I just went to the cider mill. by myself with my daughter, and like her hair was all wild because I'm like, we just running up here to get some cider. We just been chilling all day. And my hair was all like not brushed. I was in like a jogging suit. And my wife was like, "You just gonna go up there looking like that?" And I'm thinking, like, yeah, I'm a millionaire. Like, what? I'm just trying to get some donuts. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a debt free millionaire. Like, I'm just running to get some donuts. Like, it's like, and it wasn't about necessarily being a debt free millionaire. That's not the point I'm trying to stress to you. My point is, I finally got to a point where like I'm just comfortable with myself. Like who I'm trying to impress. I'm just running up here to get some donuts from the cider mill. Yeah, there was people looking fresh. Maybe they was looking at me like, how you let his daughter out the house like that? But it's like we good. You know what I'm saying? But the old me would have been on some bring the Lexus out. Let's pull up, park that bad boy right up front so everybody see us get out of it. It's like that was the old me. But not, the new me was like, man, we just going to get some donuts and some cider. Quit tripping. Like, yeah, we going out the house looking crazy. That's what I told my wife. Yeah, we going out looking crazy. So what? Like, it don't matter, right? Because at least we're that comfortable now. So, all right, here's the next step. I want you to start thinking about what are your dream goals, okay? So, step one was evaluate where you're at. Like, where are you really at in life, okay? Step two, most people are in debt so much to the fact that they can't even afford to take any opportunities or any risk, okay? And so, you want to write that down. Why are you mortgaging your future so that so much so that you don't have any money or room for opportunity, right? So then the next thing is I want you to write down your dream goals, okay? And so, or at least I want you to think about your dream goals, okay? Look at David Rotowski says he's from the 313. Welcome to the party. By the way, we'll pop that up there so people don't think I'm talking to myself. But what are your dream goals? By the way, we went to Yates Cider Mill, David, if you know where that's at. But what are your dream goals? So when you were a little kid, like what are the things that you used to dream about, right? Because unfortunately, when we become adults, we stop dreaming. We stop dreaming. When you was a little kid, it was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, I want to be an astronaut. Or where do you want to live? Big house, white picket fence, huge backyard, one wife, three kids, two dogs. I want to drive this. And then like life happens and you like, well, one kid, because we can't afford two, that big house, how much does a roof cost? What's the water bill and the heat bill? Like it's sad, but we do that. The more we kind of grow up, we start asking questions that we didn't ask when we was a kid. We were just like, I want the house. I want the wife or the husband. I want 3, 4, 5 kids. Then you're like, well, how much do 3, 4, 5 kids cost? How much is college? And who? That means the heat's gonna be on. What's the water bill like for having that type of family? Like we kind of go all off into these things. I want you to just become a kid again and think about what are my dream goals? Where do I want to live? What do I want to drive? How many kids? I was about to say how many wives. no, no, I'm just kidding. But you know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of life do you want to live? Right? I want you to think about that and write it down. Now, here's the key to writing down your goals. Don't do any yeah, but. Don't do any yeah, but that's silly. Yeah, but that's expensive. Yeah, but that would mean I would have to make this much money and I've never made that much money before. Don't do any yeah buts. I want you to just think about your dream goals. I want you to think about when you was a kid or a teenager and you just thought the world was your oyster and everything was available. What are your dream goals? Okay. So it's important to write those dream goals down. So another action step, I want you to write those dream goals down. Why is it important for you to write them down? Because there's something about the written word that says like if I were to maybe I'll do this one day. I'm gonna pull up some of my goals that I wrote down back in the day that I thought were ridiculous. I thought if I get to here, oh my God, I've made it. I can't tell you how many of those goals that I've knocked off the list, wrote a second list. Like, if I get to here, oh my goodness, we'd be living the life. I remember thinking, like, if we get a lake house, I know we'll never get one, but man, if I get to there, and then like you finally get here, you're like, whoa. Like I wrote this down like 6 years ago, 8 years ago. It's like, ooh, that's crazy. And so there's something powerful about writing it down because you kind of send this signal to the universe. You like, I wrote it. Now let's think about how to scratch it off the list. Okay. So write those dream goals down because once we get into this next part, we talking about first, all this is just mindset, realizing where you're at. Then when we start talking about how to get there, there's going to be some sacrifices that have to get made. And guess what? If the things that if the things you wrote on that list aren't strong enough, aren't worth the sacrifice, aren't worth the trouble, then here's a little secret. You're not gonna do what it takes to get there. You're not gonna do what it takes to get there. So the stuff you write on that list, I'm not just talking about a house. I'm talking health. I want a maid. I want a personal private chef so I can eat the best food. I'm talking write it down. I want 3 vacations a year, 2 vacation homes. Just write it all down. Just write down what you want and just write it all down. All right. Because the next part is going to be crucial. So write down your goals, your dreams as if there were no limitations. Right now, let me back up for a second. As you start to write down those goals and dreams, there is, let me put it like this. Let me go back full screen and talk to you for a second. When you write down your goals and dreams, don't write down the ridiculous. Now, what I mean by the ridiculous, you're like, wait a minute, you just told me put down everything I wanted. Well, let me give you an example. I remember I used to say, like, I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. And something hit me one day. I don't know, I was listening to, I either read a book or I was listening to a podcast or something. And they were like, write down everything that you want, that you believe you want. And when I wrote down everything that I believed I want, like this kind of car, this kind of house, this kind of this kind of that, the funniest thing happened. When I looked up how much this kind of car, this kind of house, this kind of this cost, I actually found out that really I wanted to be a 300,000 there. And so I'm always like, I want to be a millionaire. I got to make a million. But actually, when I wrote out what my dream life would look like after taxes and this and that, it was like, I actually only need to make about $300,000, right? And so when I say don't write out the ridiculous, if you be like, I just want a helicopter, but it's like, well, why do you want a helicopter? Because I just want to look at it. It's like, I mean, that's borderline ridiculous. Now, if you like, I would like to be a public speaker and I want to fly around the world and be able to speak publicly and I don't want to do it on an airplane. And if I could go on mission trips to Africa and I didn't have to deal with COVID in the airports, that is why I would want an airplane. Okay, now that's not ridiculous. It's like you have a purpose for the helicopter. But if you just like, I just want a helicopter in the backyard just so we could say we own, it's like, okay, that's borderline ridiculous. But if you like really write down your goals and say like, here's the specific use for it. Like I want a boat because I'd love to take my kids out fishing and experience the water. Then if you be like, okay, you need like an 8-person boat. Don't put down there, I need a 50-foot, I need a 200-foot yacht. It's like, okay, you just said you only want to take your family out, which is like you, the dog, and 2 kids. So like, why'd you put a 200-foot yacht that holds 30 people, right? So let me just make that distinction when we talk about the goals and don't be like ridiculous, but like literally, like I could pull out a little 20-foot boat that holds 6 people. All right, now let's talk about how to get there, guys. All right, because here's where we're gonna lose some people, right? Now that you know where you're at, now that you know why you are where you're at, and then you know what you want, right? Your dreams, your goals. It's just a matter of getting from where you're at, point A, to getting to point B. Now, the reason I picked this image is because getting to where you want, you're going to find out there's some loops, there's sometimes you're going to have to take a step back. So if you look at when you leave from that A and start headed towards that B, notice you kind of go in a circle and then you finally take a step back, go in another circle. What that really represents is real life, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of times people don't account for any setbacks. They don't account for any learning curve. They don't account for any losses that they might take on their way to their goals. And so what happens is inevitably the moment you take a loss, the moment you take a setback, the moment something, maybe you say, I think of like college. I was like, well, you should get in and get out in 4 years. But for me, it took 10 years, right? I went in, did 3 years, changed my major, dropped out, was day trading for 2, 3 years. Finally went back, worked a full-time job while I was going to school part-time. Okay. And so those circles and back steps represent like I dropped out. Then I realized I didn't finish a class. I had to retake a class, right? But it doesn't mean that because those things happen, I gave up on getting my degree, right? It's like if you go in knowing the road's going to be a little windy, knowing there's going to be a few setbacks here and there, then it doesn't knock you off your square as much as when something happens on your way to those things. What most people do is the moment they hit one setback, it's like, I knew this was stupid. I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I couldn't go after it. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Did you think it was just going to be a straight line to the top for you with no setbacks? Like, did you think that was going to be the story? Like, I just decided I wanted a helicopter and basically did the same thing I needed to do over the next 10 years. And yep, boop, a helicopter appeared. It's like, no, 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 no. It doesn't work like that, right? So how do you get there from A to B? Now, most people understand what they need to do to get there from A to B. If I wanted a degree, I had to enroll in some classes. I'm going to have to study. I'm going to have to, whatever the case may be, pay some tuition, et cetera, to get there. Now, if you don't know how to get to your goals, I want you to use the hero method, okay? And if you've never heard about the hero method, I want you to ask yourself, I want you to think about somebody that you admire, and then I want you to ask yourself, what would that person do? You see, let me give you an example. When I had first made $100,000 in the stock market, I was like living high. Then I quit my job. Then I was full-time trading for 3 years in a row. I was making some good money doing my thing. Then all of a sudden I lost some money. I stopped doing what it took me to get there. I didn't pay taxes for a couple years. So I was like, I need to use that money to reinvest to get the money back that I'm losing. And then there was this whole thing, right? And so lost some money, owed some taxes, basically ended up flat broke at some point, right? And here's where the hero method came in, right? The hero method I'm talking about. The hero method is pick somebody you admire and ask what would they do. So for me, it was Warren Buffett. I said, well, what would Warren Buffett do? I said, on Warren Buffett's way to become a billionaire, do you think he's ever lost $1,000, $10,000, $100,000? Do you think he's ever owed taxes? I said, well, yeah. I said, okay. So if you're Warren Buffett, if Warren Buffett is you and he's in the same scenario, what would Warren Buffett do? Because if Warren Buffett quits right here, Warren Buffett never becomes a billionaire. So if Warren Buffett takes your situation and says, well, I lost some money in the stock market. I tried it. It don't work. I owe taxes. And he quits right now, right here where you're at. He never becomes a billionaire. He never becomes the greatest investor of all times. Okay. And so that's what I'm talking about when you think about the hero method. You start to say, well, what would Warren Buffett do? I said, well, Warren Buffett would get back into the stock market. Well, what if you can't get back into the stock market this year? Then Warren Buffett would get back into the stock market next year. He's going to do whatever he has to do this year to get back into the stock market next year, right? And so once you start to think like that, you start to think from the perception of your heroes. What would they do? Okay, it really it really changes the game because you say, okay, well, I want to be the next Warren Buffett or I want to be the next whoever. You say, okay, well, what would he do? He probably would get out of debt. Okay. He probably would take a course on investing. Okay. So then you start backtracking and say, what do you think Warren Buffett did to get where he had to get there? He got around smart people. Okay. How did he find those smart people? Right. Maybe he asked for a mentor. Maybe he paid for a mentor. Right. Or you say he started reading books. Okay. And what did he do before he started reading books? Well, he had to apply for a library card. Okay. So you got step one, go get a library card. Right. So it's like once you backtrack from where they are to what did they have to do before that, or you reverse it and say, if they were in my same situation, what does my heroes do to get to where they are? I guarantee you the answer is not they quit, they gave up, they complained. I mean, they probably complain because they're human, but the answer is they found some way to move forward. They purchased a course, they invested in a mentor, they read books, they got control of their spending habits, they wrote down their goals at some point, they start listening to podcasts. It probably wasn't a podcast back there's books on tape, right? So you start to really think about what would your hero do. So when you look at where you're at and where you want to go, if you ever confuse, like, people say, I don't know where to start. Okay, well, what would your hero do? He probably stop spending on credit cards. Okay, then how about we start right there? Okay, what would your hero do next after they got their spending under control? They'd probably learn how to invest. Okay, now, would they learn for free or would they pay? They'd probably pay. Okay, I don't have any money. Okay, what would your hero do if he didn't have any money? He'd probably watch some YouTube videos. Okay, start there, right? That's why you probably watching some free YouTube videos, right? So it's like there's always, I think the big picture here is your hero never gets stuck. Notice when your hero didn't have money for a course, they did everything they could do for free. Right? Notice if your hero didn't have money for Amazon, they went and got a free library card. They did everything that they had control over. They didn't just say, well, I guess I can't go to the library because I don't have a car and it's COVID. I don't want to catch the bus. Your hero would probably walk. Okay. If your hero wouldn't walk, your hero would call a neighbor or a friend and say, can you run me to the library? Right. Basically, your hero would do whatever it took to keep moving the ball forward. All right. And that's the importance of the hero method. So your action step is write down what would one of your heroes do, whether they lost money, they're deep in credit card debt, whatever the case may be. Write down what would your hero do. What would they start doing from right here, right now, both free and paid? Okay, because you don't want money to be excused. What would they do for free, and what would they do for paid to kind of speed up the process? All right, that's going to be your next step. Now, this is the part that's going to be depressing to most people. Okay, and the question you got to ask yourself is, what are you willing to sacrifice? Okay. So getting from where you're at to where you want to be with your goals, this stuff is not going to come without some sacrifice. All right. So when I think about my personal sacrifice or sacrificial story, I remember when I said I want to get back into the stock market, but somehow, even though I was in the market, I managed to lose money, get in debt, not pay taxes, etc. It was like in my early years, right? Like 2004 or 5, something like that, over 15 years ago. And so I remember saying like, okay, here's where I'm at. I got real about my situation. I'm in debt. I talked about why I got in debt, bought the car, did this, partying, not paying taxes, etc. Right? And then I said, where do you want to be? I said, eventually debt free. I want to drive the same car, a similar car, but I don't want to feel bad about driving it because I'm really broke on paper, right? And so I looked at where I wanted to be, where I wanted to live. And then I said, how do I get there? So I mapped it out and I said, what would my heroes do? And so for me, when I wrote down what will my heroes do, I said, Warren Buffett, I want to become a multi-million-dollar stock trader, investor, maybe one of the best all time. I don't know. Good Lord, let me live to 70. Got a long time to go to try to drum up some noise in this industry where people say, man, I remember that guy from way back then creating those videos saying what he wanted to be, right? And so I said, what would it take? What would my mentor do? What would my hero do? And so I said, Warren Buffett would sell the car. And so here's the problem, right? Let me bring it back up. Here's the problem, right? That's why it's a sad face right there. Because I said, Warren Buffett would sell the car. So then you go, ooh, what my friends gonna think? People gonna think I fell off, right? It's like, ooh, I can't sell the car because people gonna ask why I sold the car. And then do I lie about why I sold the car? So what would Warren Buffett do? Warren Buffett would say, I sold the car because I got some investments I want to do that's going to pay me greater later, right? And so leaning on my hero gave me the energy to do what I needed to do. I eventually sold the car. I sold the Lexus. I actually took it a step further. And I moved back home with my mom at that time. Most humbling experience of my life after making hundreds of thousands of dollars, moving out, balling, all this and that. Super humbling experience. But what gave me the energy was knowing where I was at, knowing where I wanted to be, then knowing what my hero would do and what sacrifice I would have to make to get there. It became crystal clear what I needed to do. But the problem is for most people is it's painful because what you're willing to sacrifice starts to bleed into who you believe you are as a person, right? See, we start to ask ourselves, I know where I want to be. I want that car. I want that lifestyle. I want to be living debt free. I want to not worry about my bills. Okay. So then you need to get into, some type of vehicle or put yourself in a position where you could do that. Okay. So first step is to stop the bleeding, right? That's where I was at. Stop the bleeding. How do I stop from going negative every month? I said, well, we got this stupid like $500, $600 car note. We cut that off. It's like, how much are you going negative every month? Like $1,200. Cut the car note off. That cut the bleeding in half. It's like, okay. It's like, all right, so now we got $600 more to cut the bleeding on. How do you stop the bleeding on $600? So at least you stabilize and you start going positive. It was like, well, got this $800 note apartment, paying for gas, electricity, cable bill. Cut that off. It's like, cut the apartment, I save $800. Cut the gas, the electricity. I don't know, I'm rounding here. I save about $1,000. So we only needed to cut $600. So if we do that, we go cash flow positive $400 every single month. So after the end of 12 months, you got $4,800 to put back into the stock market. Plus, if you get a tax return, $2,000, boom, $6,000, you back into the game in a year. But it's going to cost you. What is it going to cost you? It's going to cost you your reputation. What are you going to tell people when you tell them you have to move back home with your mom and your grown man after you just finished balling so hard, buying cars, right? Living the life. And this is where it gets super hard for most people because it's like, do I tell my friend? It's not sexy. I heard another young lady say this. I wish I remember her name so I can give her credit for it because I was listening to like a financial podcast or something. And man, I don't know who she is, but if anybody knows who this young lady is, she said, telling your friends I can't go out and have a drink because it's not in my budget is not sexy, right? Like you feel stupid, you feel broke, like it's not in my budget. So she said just switching the word to saying like that's not part of my plan. It's like just that switch to saying it's not part of my plan is a whole different power dynamic. And when I think back to how I was able to do it back then, it was the power of saying like, that's not part of my plan. Like living in this apartment, trying to impress you, going cash flow negative, that's not part of the plan. And so when I start speaking from a place of like, I got bigger plans, like, why'd you move back home? It's like, ooh, you don't know. I got some plans. And people looked at me different, like, ooh, like he gotta be working on something huge. It's like, if you like, well, I'm broke, I got to get this under control. It's like, that's not respectable. When you like, I got some plans. I got some things that we planning to do that's going to require me to move back home right now. People was like, my man working on something big. Even though at that point in my life, I felt the lowest I've ever felt. These were the tricks I had to play on myself and the words that, like, when you say it's not part of the plan, it gives you the power to make the tough decisions, right? And so part of the plan was going cash flow positive every month, not impressing people and worrying about what they think about why I had to move back home. So when you start to execute from that level of authority, that level of sureness, like, watch, this ain't part of the plan. I know I got to sacrifice this right now, but wait, watch me in 6 months, 12 months. People actually like, can I be a part of that? Maybe I should move back home too. What you got cooking up, right? But the point is just having that type of authority and knowing what you're willing to sacrifice. And most people aren't willing to make the sacrifices because they're too worried about today. They're too comfortable today. It's like, well, you moving back home with your mom, ain't you gonna be uncomfortable? It's like, yeah, but I'm willing to get uncomfortable today so that I can be comfortable tomorrow. Are you feeling me? I'm telling you, this was some powerful stuff for me. And so when you really take note, take inventory of what you're willing to sacrifice, regardless, because it's no success without sacrifice, okay? Or as they say, there's no testimony without any test, right? And so it's like you go get tested. And so first test you go encounter is like, okay, you wrote down your goals. You said you want that house. You said you want to be out of debt. You want to drive that car. You want a personal chef. You want your kids to go to that school. The first test you go come up against is, okay, downsize your car. And you're like, oh, I can't downsize the car though, because people at work see me pull up. They know I'm. It's like, okay, that's the first test and you failed it. I guess you really don't care about your family. I guess you really don't care about your kids going to that school. Or let me reverse it. If in 20 years, when you have kids, or however old you are in 5 years when you have kids, will you feel comfortable saying, I wanted you to actually be able to go to college debt free, or I wanted you to go to that school, but you don't know how I felt to pull up in that car every Monday when everybody outside on their smoke break and we go to lunch and so I know you got to take out 100,000 in student loans. I understand we can't live in that neighborhood, get the best school system. We got in this crime-ridden neighborhood with bars on them. But you should have saw that car I was driving back in 1985, or you should have saw that car I was driving back in 2000, right? So ask yourself, will that conversation make sense to have with your kid 5, 10, 20 years from now, or your spouse 5, 10 years from now when you're not in the house you want to be in, or when you're not debt free, or whatever the case may be, right? So those are just some tools that can help you make the tough decision and have the tough conversation with yourself, because it's not going to be easy, but that's the test that you're going to come up against. Like, is your dreams as important as you said they are, or is your current situation and what people think about you and how you feel right now more important? Big difference, right? All right, moving on. So your action step, write down what you're going to have to give up. Write down the words you need to tell yourself. It's not part of my plan. I got a new plan. Wait till you see me in 5 years. If you finding it hard to make that sacrifice, I want you to write out the conversation that you plan to have with your family on why y'all didn't hit your goals. Just write it out. Just be like, hey, I wanted us to live in that house, but I wanted this purse. You know what I'm saying? Dooney and Burke is Dooney. Like, I want you to write it out. Just it's something about writing it out. You start to realize how ridiculous things sound. Like, we don't live there because I wanted to wear this. You can't go to school there because I wanted to drive this. Right? It when you really think about it, it sounds ridiculous, right? All right. So you got a choice. It's like the Matrix. Red, blue pill. You got to choose, which one do you want? Your dreams and your goals, or do you want to stay the same? And it's hard to make these decisions, but you're going to have to make those decisions. All right. So let's talk about the money side of this thing, right? Let's talk about the money side. So once you make the decision, right? Once you choose, right? I'm going to start living for the future, living for my family, living for my dreams and goals. Okay. That's how you get debt under control, right? You got to identify where you're at. You got to identify where you want to be, the steps you're going to have to take, the sacrifices you're going to have to make, and the heroes you're going to have to follow, and the mindset shifts you're going to have to change to get there. Okay, once you get that under control and you get cash flow positive, like I finally did, now you start to ask yourself, I need a money machine. Okay, so what's going to be your money machine? So a money machine is something that generates money. Now we all have a money machine. Let's talk about most people's money machine, right? Most people's money machine is their job, and there's nothing wrong with that. I am not that guy that comes on here and bashes people's jobs. Yeah, people, I hate when people say, like, I don't know. I know sometimes people in our industry who are stock traders who sell courses and stuff like this, like their selling point is like, don't you hate your boss? They're crooks. They'll never pay you what you're worth. And, all this negative stuff. And like, that's not my energy because number one, we have employees or team members. And so like, I never want my team to come look at me every day like, oh, he don't pay us. He's just using us. So that's not the energy or the vibe I want to put out there. Number one. Number two, when I needed a job, I was so grateful that Comcast hired me, Verizon I worked for hired me, Sprint, PCS, Best Buy. Trust me, when I needed a job, I was not sitting across the table like, you're not gonna pay me what I'm worth. I was like, please, look, I'm broke. Look, yes, I can sell some cell phones, give a brother a job. You know what I'm saying? So like, I needed a job. I needed some money. All right. So my point is, your job is not designed to get you rich. Your job is to pay you roughly a fair. Now, fair is debatable, okay? But your job is to pay you a fair wage for the fair services. It is your job to get rich. It is your job. No employer says, come work for us. We're going to help you buy the house of your dreams. No, they say, for that talent, roughly, okay, this is the going rate for an engineer. Right? Never did they say, we're going to make sure your kid can go to school debt free or you can live in the best. That was never part of the package. Okay. So don't get mad at your employer. And that's why I don't speak ill of jobs or employees. They serve a specific purpose. Okay. So, but you have to understand the machine that you're in. So if your job is the only money machine that you're in, what's the problem with that? Okay, problem is it's only 24 hours in the day. So you just encountered problem number one. You are a human. You cannot work 24 hours a day. So the first problem is what? You already have a limitation on how much you can make. You'd have to not sleep, not take a break, not eat if you wanted to try to work 24 hours a day. And basically you would kill yourself because you're a human. You have to sleep, you have to eat, you have to take breaks, etc. So that's the problem if that's your only money machine, okay? Second problem when that's your only money machine is this. Okay, how many jobs can you work? 2, maybe 3. But the bottom line is you typically only work 24 hours in a day. I don't care how many jobs you get. You're still only limited to 24 hours a day. So the problem with that as a machine is there's no duplication. There's no exponential growth. There's no times 2, times 3, times 4 people working, right? It's just you and work, you and work. All right. And so there's in order to get wealthy in that system, you have to use that system for what it's for. Live below your means, get cash flow positive, and then take the extra and then move it over into a different machine. Now, there's obviously different machines. There's real estate as a machine. You could open a Shopify store and start selling bracelets that you make. I don't know. Maybe you paint and you want to sell paintings, whatever. We're going to be talking about the stock market as a machine. Now, here's why I believe this is a machine that everybody should be in. Okay. Number one, it allows you to stay in your first machine, which is working, and start a second machine with very little effort. That's number one, right? So when I first got involved with the stock market, I was able to still work my full-time job and have my money. I was looking at my money like little employees. I'm like, I got 1,000 of them working for me Good job, guys. I was like, ooh, can I get 2,000 of them working for me? So I was like at work and they were at work because the market is open from 9:30 to 4:30, right? So I'm like, I'm at work. Let me see, did they clock in today, right? I was looking out. That's equivalent to me checking to see what my stocks was doing. I was like, let me see if they clocked in today. Okay, they slacking. The stock's down. They slacking today. Let's get it together. Let's get it together, guys. As if they could hear me, right? But that's how I felt. And it was very empowering. I'm like, finally, I got somebody else contributing to my income, right? And they don't get tired, they don't get sick, they don't take sick leave, they don't talk back, none of that. And so that started to put me in a position of power. Finally, yes, I can see how I can reach my goals because I got some other little green guys working for me. So that's number one. It allows you leverage even while you continue working your full-time job. Number two, making money is not a one-to-one transaction in the stock market. I could put in 1,000 and then it can make me 3,000. So it's like, wait a minute, that's a 200% return, right? So now you're finally in a game or in an industry where you have leverage, right? We have leverage. It's not necessarily one-to-one. It could be 1-to-2, 1-to-3, right? And so these are powerful reasons why you need to get into another machine. The other thing is, when you think about this machine and learning it, the barrier to entry is low. It doesn't care that you're male, female, black, white. It doesn't care about your ethnicity, your background, or anything like that. It says if you got the money to play and you got a high-speed internet connection or a smartphone, you can get into this game. So the barrier to entry is low. All right. Versus like if I got to get into real estate, so I got to find a house. I got to find some contractors. They got to fix it up. We got to find somebody to buy it. There's taxes. There's this. It's not my primary home. It's all this stuff. But if I can just say, I have an iPhone. I use Apple. Why don't I buy some Apple stock? If I learn how to read the chart, determine how the best time to buy it, very low barrier to entry to get into the game, very high reward for getting into that game. All right. And so when you start to look at it, when you wrap this whole thing up, right? And then maybe we'll open it up for a couple questions as we get ready to round this up. When you look at it and wrap these things up, you really are standing at a crossroad in your life once you know, right? And the question is, will you change? Right? You already wrote down where you're at. You wrote down your goals and dreams of where you want to be. You did the hero method and said, what would they do today to start to get there, to speed things up? Okay. What would they have to sacrifice? All right. And so you start to ask yourself, am I going to change and go down that road? Am I going to stay the same because peer pressure is too great? My husband don't believe in me. My wife don't believe in me, or my friends don't believe in me, or whatever the case may be. Or what are they going to say if I sell this, downgrade this, whatever I got to do? Or are you going to do some combination of the two, right? So I don't want to take for granted that my situation was extreme. Like I sold the car. I should post like the video footage because I was always taught like videotape moments in your life that are huge, whether they're positive or negative, which is like when we paid off our house, while we videotaped that and shared that on YouTube. It's like I always want to look back and be like, man, that was monumental. I remember how I felt. But what I should show you guys is we videotaped when we had to move out of my apartment and we were packing stuff up, selling stuff, and I was so defeated. Those are in my private archives. Maybe we'll release that video one day. I don't know, but I don't even know why did I bring that up? My point was, what was my point? My point was, you should videotape this stuff. Oh, my point was, that was my point. I got it back. I was like thinking back to those days. I get emotional thinking about like, man, that was a dark time in my life. But my point was I went extreme. Okay. I moved out, sold the car, I sold my furniture. I didn't want to put it in storage. Like, oh, we'll get it back. I was like, I need cash. I'm trying to get back into the stock market. So like I went extreme. I sold everything. I literally just had clothes and I had a used Cutlass Supreme that I drove That's it. And a laptop. I was like, I don't need nothing else if it ain't helping me invest. And so I remember I went like way extreme. So why am I bringing that up? I'm bringing that up because in the middle is a combination, right? I went extreme because I wanted extreme results. I was just like, I ain't got time to play in the middle. I was like, I wanted extreme results. I wanted out of this pain that I felt of driving this car, but I was really broke. Going cash flow, I was like 1,200 negative every single month. Like I wanted out of that life. And so I went extreme. There was no middle ground for me. It wasn't like, well, just sell the car and you can still stay in the apartment. I was like, nah. If I'm doing it, I'm doing it. I'm selling the car. I'm selling the furniture. I wonder if I still got my Craigslist ads. I sold everything. I went extreme. But my point is, ladies and gentlemen, there is a middle ground. All right. There is like a combination of the two. You could reduce your credit card debt and still drive the car. Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem. We can get ready to wrap by saying this. The problem is when you play around with small changes, you get small results. See, most people be like, I'll just do a little bit, and then you get a little bit of a result, right? You're like, I'll just give up this. Then it's going to take you 10 years instead of 5 years, right? And so it's like the smaller the sacrifice, the smaller the result, and the longer it's going to take to actually get to your end goal. The bigger the sacrifice, the bigger the results, and the faster it's going to take. It'll reduce the time of you getting to your goal. And that's really what I want you thinking about as you start to make your decisions. It's like, well, how quickly do you want to be out of debt? People be like, well, do I really got to sell my car? And be like, well, how quick you want to get out of debt? Do I really got to move back home with my mom? Well, no. But had I stayed in that apartment, kept the car, it probably would have took me 5 years to bounce back. From the time I moved home to the time I bounced back, I believe it was exactly like 1 year. Had I tried to hold on to that stuff, it probably would have took me 4 or 5 years. But because I went so extreme, you could literally look back on my life. It was like 12 months exactly. I was back in the game. Now, I wasn't back driving a luxury car, but I was cash flow positive. I think I had like 10, 20,000 in the stock market. And what happened was the funniest thing. Because I had learned to live off so little, as I started making money with Verizon, eventually got a better job with Comcast, I never really increased my spending though. I found a whole new world of like living this minimalistic life and being cash flow positive. So I was cash flow positive like 400 a month. Then like I got a raise. So I was cash flow positive like 600 a month. Then I started making more commission. I was cash flow positive like 2,600 a month. Then like I got my degree and then I got a better job. And that was like, I was making like 110,000 before I left corporate America. My bills was at like 2,000. So I was cash flow positive like 8,000. I mean, not with taxes and stuff. I was probably cash flow positive like 6,000. 7,000, something like that, crazy every single month. And like, I was like, ooh, like 6,000 cash flow positive every month with what I know how to make it work in the stock market. I was like, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Right. And so it was just a whole nother lifestyle. So that's my encouragement to you guys to get out of debt and onto the fast track. Let's just recap. You got to take inventory of where you're at, right? You got to take inventory of what your current situation is. Be real about it. Don't be all, well, it ain't that bad. No, I wrote it down. I was like, yep, it's bad. Like, I don't want to live like this, right? Number 2, I was like, where do I want to be? What's my dreams and goal? Okay, number 3, who's my heroes and what would they do right now to change the situation and turn around? It was like Warren Buffett to sell the car, Warren Buffett to move back home. Warren Buffett would be cash flow positive. I was like, let's go. Let's get cash flow positive. Let's make the sacrifice. It's like, what about my friends? Well, what would Warren Buffett do? Warren Buffett wouldn't care about his friends. Okay, let's not care about our friends. Let's move back home. Like, it was just like, I'm not going to say the decisions weren't still hard and emotional, took an emotional toll. I'm not trying to paint that picture. There was many days I was probably depressed and like, what am I doing? But there was more days where I was like, let's go. Let's go. Wait till we emerge from this, right? And so, and then Figure out how to get your money into a machine that's not limited to a 1-to-1. You work an hour, you get paid an hour, or you limit it to only you making 24 hours in one day. If you can fix that, I'm telling you guys, that's how you get out of debt and on to the fast track. All right. American Carver says most people don't have the nerves to go extreme. Price and shame usually gets in the way. Absolutely. But I hope I gave some people permission. I hope and when I look back on this video 10, 20 years from now, I hope I gave somebody permission to look their friends in the eye and be like, I'm selling it all. I'm moving back. I'm downgrading the car. I'm selling the stupid watch. I hope I gave somebody permission. Miss LaCasa said, if you want to know what you know, thank you. She learned to live cheaper. Awesome. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Money Mondays. Let's get out of debt. Let's get onto the fast track. Let's get our money working for us in the stock market. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification. Make it rain emojis. And if you know somebody who needs to see this video, make sure you tag them and let the YouTube algorithm know or Facebook algorithm know they need to be sharing this video. I'll see you next week on the next Money Monday.